Final Fantasy VII, a game considered by many to be one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, finally received part 1 of its long-awaited remake series just a few short weeks ago. While part 1 of this remake series only covers a relatively small section of the original game's source material, the Midgar arc to be specific, so much new life has been breathed into Midgar that it's hard not to fall in love with the rough slums and its wonderful, interesting characters all over again. Unsurprisingly, in addition to being an amazing source of nostalgia and escapism during some truly troubled times, it has also revived one of the oldest debates in gaming. The internet is once again on fire with people arguing over who they believe is the better romantic option for our protagonist Cloud Strife, Tifa or Aerith. These people are cowards. Sticking to a 23-year-old argument and limiting Cloud's dating options to only Tifa or Aerith is frankly thinking just a bit too small, especially when Midgar's most eligible bachelor now has more dating options than ever. So regardless of how you feel about the episodic release model of the new remake series, by expanding the Midgar arc of the story, we can all agree that many of the characters that had relatively minor roles in the overall story have had their parts, personalities, and importance greatly expanded upon. So today, we are going to go down the list of viable candidates, and we are going to determine who, in fact, is Cloud Strife's most compatible partner. Oh, buckle up, y'all. This is going to be a weird one. So first, we need to establish the criteria that we're going to use to evaluate each potential partner and determine their compatibility with Cloud. I think we can all agree that Cloud is a complex, multi-dimensional lover, and in order to properly determine who is his most appropriate partner, we need to go down the list of compatible traits and evaluate each partner in a rational, systematic manner. You know, like with an alignment chart. Criteria 1, emotional warmth. So on the surface level, Cloud is a relatively closed-off individual. He doesn't really see the need for friends. He doesn't go out and actively seek out connections with other people, despite the fact that he has a relatively traumatic history. As far as he's concerned, he's a super soldier that was bred for war. He saw the death of his entire family and village when he was younger. Parts of his past he doesn't even remember, so he really does his best to try and close himself off and avoid people. But isn't that a person that really needs some kind of warmth in their life to help them heal and recover from that trauma? Yes, Cloud may be a dumb, spiky dipshit, but even dumb, spiky dipshits need hugs too. The struggle we're going to have with this criteria is we need to find somebody for Cloud who's not completely smothering. He doesn't need somebody who's going to try and force him to talk about his past, confront his demons, and really be open, but not somebody who is an absolute bastard. There has to be a very, very narrow middle ground, somebody who is willing to listen to him and talk to him and help him work through these issues, but he also needs to have somebody who is not going to force him to open up. With this, Cloud can have a very healthy partner with enough emotional warmth to suit his needs so that he can continue to grow and then they can grow together. Criteria 2, emotional availability. So this one's going to be a bit of a tricky one. As I mentioned before, Cloud is a bit distant and he does not really see the need for these connections with people. However, every once in a while we do see that genuine need for someone that he wants to connect with, that he wants to reach out to and become friends with and connected with, breaks through the mold, whether it be finally returning a high five to Aerith or listening to Wedge talk about his stupid fucking cats. Based on this, we need to find somebody for Cloud who is not too clingy, that is going to further smother him and always be around when there are times that he's going to need to be alone to work through the trauma that he has experienced in his life. But we also need someone who is too distant. If they're not going to step up and be there for him and be serious about a relationship, that's not going to accomplish anything and that's not going to be enough for him. All of that in mind, we end up getting something like this. And that's the best I can do because that's quarantine, baby. That's quarantine, baby. Jesus, I'm so fucking tired. So before we go down the list of viable candidates, I left off any minor NPCs that didn't have much of a relevance in the overall story. People like quest givers didn't really add up to much here. I also left off the trio because Chocobo Sam, Madam M, and Andrea Rodea are too powerful for categorization. Also, I think they support the operations of a sex trafficker, but y'all aren't ready to have that conversation yet. Okay, so up first, we are going to identify the 4 characters that fit at the individual corners of this alignment chart. These are the characters characters that still kind of enter the radar and are worthy of consideration, but they fall far too into the extreme to really be suitable matches for Cloud. Roche is a new character exclusive to Final Fantasy VII Remake. He is a fellow member of Soldier, and his first introduction is as he speeds onto the scene with his motorcycle and mullet flowing in the wind as he tries to stop Cloud and the other members of Avalanche. Roche firmly falls into the clingy absolute bastard territory. Upon first meeting Cloud, he forms a bit of an obsession with him and proceeds to then follow him around as Cloud and Avalanche work on their mission to force Cloud to fight him, and then at the end he just speeds off, assumedly to fight Cloud again at a later date. Roche is that guy to where if you were to take him on a date, all he knows how to talk about is his motorcycle and the things he wants to do. Everything to Roche is going to be a challenge. He's always going to want to try to beat you at something, and then the second you decide that you're through and you're not interested anymore, he's just going to show up again at your house and insist that you guys go on a race. Up next, we have Wedge, member of Avalanche, an overall pretty friendly guy. He very much so likes to make friends. He's very outgoing, and he's very ready and willing to talk to anybody at any time. Also, look at how fucking cute he is. God, he's adorable. Look at him. Unfortunately, this puts Wedge into the clingy, smothering category. He never quite really seems to take the hint that Cloud is not up to talking or very much so interested. While you could argue he's just trying to get Cloud to open up and come out of his shell, he does come on extremely strongly and insists that Cloud meets all of his 11 fucking cats. Up next, we have Reeve Tuesti, the man that had, without a doubt, the best glow up in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it absolutely kills me that I have to put him in this category because holy shit. Reeve works in the Housing and Urban Development Division of the Shinra Electric Power Company. While almost any member of Shinra immediately gets classified as an absolute bastard, Reeve is a bit of the exception in that he genuinely seems to care about the citizens of Midgar, and he does his best to try and mitigate the damage from the inside. Despite the fact that Reeve is very clearly the most handsome man in Final Fantasy VII, he does have a few qualities that do put him firmly in the smothering and distant category. You remember that scene where they dropped the plate onto Sector 7 and you saw that weird fucking cat wearing a crown? Hey, y'all remember that that's Reeve? How that's Reeve controlling that mechanical cat? That's a thing he actually does like in his spare time. So Reeve has this weird issue to where he wants to be involved in the situation. He always wants to be around, but he's not willing to do it on his own. So he sends out a mechanical cat to follow around Cloud and company on their merry adventures and helping them out that way. He's not upfront enough to be emotionally available for Cloud when he actually needs him and physically be there, but he also does always want to be around at all times with a weird mechanical cat. That's upsetting. What is he doing with that cat? When the party is sleeping, is he just like watching them while they sleep? That's not okay. That's upsetting. Fucking weirdo. Okay, so this next one's definitely gonna get me some flack because if Archive of Our Own leads me to believe anything is that this is the one that people want to see most, and that's gonna be Sephiroth. Look, y'all, this is supposed to be who is the most fitting partner for Cloud, not who people are horniest for. Sephiroth very clearly falls into the distant absolute bastard territory. Yo, he killed his whole fucking village and burnt it to the ground. Everyone Cloud knows is dead because of him. If that's not an absolute bastard move, like, why the fuck am I doing this? Also, he's kind of distant because, let's face it, the only time he ever really seeks out Cloud is to fuck with him, and that's not really being emotionally available. That's just being an asshole. Now let's talk about some of the people that are in Shinra. For those unfamiliar, the Shinra Electric Power Company is a large multinational power company in the world of Final Fantasy VII that primarily provides Mako energy to the citizens across the world. Mako energy is a fancy way of saying the planet's very essence and life force. They also happen to dabble in genetic engineering, space exploration, and military conquest. These are the bad guys. President Shinra is the CEO of the Shinra Electric Power Company. In general, he's just kind of a wealth-obsessed, maniacal, greedy bastard who will stop at nothing to put Shinra on top of the world. He thinks of himself so much as the ruler of the world that his first name is actually president. I don't really have that much to say about him. The only thing he really seems to care about in the world is his son Rufus, and I don't think he's a great match for Cloud just because he generally hates poor people. I mean, he did drop an entire plate on the Sector 7 slums just to kill poor people and blame Avalanche for it, so Rufus Shinra is pretty damn similar to his father when it comes right down to it. Rufus Shinra is that kid that went to business school, got a job because of his dad, and then likes to sit and talk about how all it really takes to get your leg up in the world is hard work and determination, and he deserves everything he's gotten because he worked for it to get there. He doesn't really care about anyone else. I mean, he's kind of a dog person, I guess, with his warhounds, but like, Still kind of a dick. I will say his fashion game is on point though. Like, I don't know if that's a skirt or Hakama pants, but goddamn, he is working it. Heidegger is the head of public safety for Shinra. He's known for having a really weird horse laugh, and that's about all I really have to say about him. Heidegger just kind of sucks. Like, I don't really... Like, he's not going to be the choice here. Like, that's not the bait and switch of this video. Heidegger kind of falls under the bastard, slightly clingy side. Heidegger is that weird old guy that's worked in your office for longer than anyone even remembers. He's like really desperate for his boss's approval, and anytime anything goes wrong, he immediately blames you for it and slaps you in the face. Scarlet is the head of weapons development for Shinra, and really, I don't have anything funny to say about her. I mean, she's kind of like Heidegger, but like, they both suck and they're not very funny. I mean, I could make like a step on me joke with her, I guess, but Professor Hojo heads Shinra's Science Research Division, aka the Genetic Testing Ward. Professor Hojo doesn't really have a lot of alliance with Shinra. He really just works with them to further his own goals and research. I mean, he created Sephiroth. He's responsible for all of the genetic testing that led to soldiers, and at one point, he also wanted to breed Aerith and Red 13 together so he could try and make an ancient. Hojo goes here. Let's talk about the Turks. The Turks are an intelligence agency that works for Shinra, and they're primarily responsible for gathering information, finding eligible candidates for soldier, and all other kind of unsavory, kind of underground needs. Sung is the leader of the Turks, and like most of the other Turks, he's not afraid of getting his hands dirty to get the job done. He is a stern, no-nonsense, and bit of a temperamental leader, and is known for his ruthlessness for those who get in his way. One of the interesting things about Sung is that he has known one of our protagonists, Aerith, since she was a child. Over the years, as he has attempted to acquire Aerith for Shinra, he has shown that he does have a bit of a compassionate side. Sung is that guy where no matter how many hints you give him, he just won't back off. He's clingy, but he doesn't really care about anybody's feelings but his own. Reno is one of the prominent members of the Turks and is a recurring minor antagonist against Cloud and his party. Reno is a lanky, cynical, spiky-haired fuckboy who is pretty much always willing to get his hands dirty on behalf of Shinra and the Turks, regardless of who it is or what he has to do. Morality for him is kind of just an afterthought. Honestly, Reno's biggest problem is that he knows exactly how hot he is, if you couldn't tell by his open shirt and exposed chest. Reno's that guy that'll be posting thirst traps on Instagram all day, slide into your DMs at 3 a.m. asking if you up, but then leave you on red. Rude is another senior member of the Turks and is actually Reno's partner in crime. Unlike Reno, this bald-headed fuck is actually a lot more soft-spoken and tends to let his fists do the talking. Rude also shows some moments of genuine internal conflict whenever he has to do dirty work with the Turks. While that doesn't necessarily excuse the work that he does for Shinra, it does show that there is a bit of a heart inside of him and that he does want to care. Also, the first time you meet him in the remake, he's feeding a bunch of wild pigeons, and let's be real here, that earns him a lot of points with me. Let's move on to Avalanche. Avalanche is the eco-terrorist group that Cloud falls in with at the beginning of Final Fantasy VII. Their main goal is to disrupt and ultimately put an end to Shinra's operations in an attempt to save the planet. Jessie is one of the characters that had a very minor role in the original Final Fantasy VII and had that role greatly expanded in the remake. She's become something of a fan favorite. Jessie is very cute, outgoing, flirty, and very upfront with Cloud about her interest in him. However, sometimes you could argue that she's being a bit too upfront because she very clearly makes Cloud uncomfortable with all the flirting. In addition to that, while she does come off on the surface as a bit clingy and smothering to Cloud, Wedge does suggest in a scene that to her it's all just a game. My worry with that is that the second Cloud shows interest in her, she'll lose interest in him. It's hard to categorize Jessie because of that, so we're gonna kind of stick her between a couple categories and move on. Biggs is the strategist of Avalanche and generally has a pretty jocular and friendly demeanor. He's initially a little skeptical and wary of Cloud, but ends up warming up to him pretty quickly. As the strategist, he also tends to have the clearest head of the bunch. In addition to all that, he has a heart of gold. Before he joined up with Avalanche, he used to teach at an orphanage over in Sector 5. However, it is implied early on that he doesn't quite see what Jessie does in Cloud. Now, whether that means he just doesn't find Cloud attractive, or if he's just not interested in dating, it does mean that maybe he's not quite the right match we're looking for. Barrett Wallace is the leader of Avalanche and is a certified gun arm carrying, sunglasses indoors wearing badass. Barrett is a man that is truly devoted to Avalanche's cause. He wants to put an end to Shinra's reign so he can create a future for his young daughter Marlene. Now, while he is an extremely loving and doting father, he is a man that is focused on his mission. He is a man that very clearly will not rest until he feels that his job is done. While he does come off as very hot-headed and brash, he does truly care about his friends, but his heart belongs to Marlene at the end of the day. So there's a couple characters here that really didn't fall into any of the other group classifications, so I just stuck them here. Don Corneo. Zack Fair is an old friend of Cloud's and the late boyfriend of Aerith. Zack and Cloud were in the military together, and due to some truly traumatic events, Cloud repressed his memories of Zack and based his entire life off of him. Originally, in a final act of heroism, Zack sacrificed his life for Cloud's. Zack cared for Cloud so much and wanted him to live on and carry his memory into the future. Zack and Cloud are spiritually and emotionally intertwined with one another. However, the ending cutscene of Final Fantasy VII Remake implies that there is a timeline out there where Zack actually lived at the end. So that would mean... Yeah, you know what? Let's put Zack in the time vortex for right now. And now we arrive at the duo that initially prompted this discussion. Tifa and Aerith. Tifa is the owner of the Sector 7 bar, 7th Heaven, which also functions as Avalanche's base of operations. Tifa is a childhood friend of Cloud's. She's had feelings for Cloud for pretty much her entire life. She genuinely cares about him and wants the best for him. In addition to being an absolute powerhouse and destructive fighter, she has a pretty big soft side. She actively questions the methods by which Avalanche goes about their business and wonders if there's a better way. Aerith is a mysterious flower girl and is a relatively new figure in Cloud's life after he literally dropped in on her. Aerith has a bit more of a carefree personality and really tries hard to not focus on the bad in the world. She's very stubborn and tends to jump in despite any risks to her own safety. So we've come to this point where after reviewing all of these other characters, we don't quite have a match yet. So that means it has to be one of these two, right? The perfect match for Cloud obviously has to be either Tifa or Aerith, right? Wrong, because I'm not a fucking coward. Cloud is a grumpy, brooding boy. Oftentimes when he's acting like this, Tifa won't truly reprimand him for this behavior. She'll often let him be his angry, moping self instead of trying to talk to him about what's happened. Aerith, on the other hand, often doesn't really seem to care that Cloud is a brooding asshole. She often will steamroll right over him with whatever she wants to do without a care of how uncomfortable it may make him. So if it's not Tifa, and it's not Aerith, and it's not one of these other fine candidates, then who is Cloud's best match? It's fucking Johnny, you fools! Johnny is without question the most appropriate match for Cloud in Final Fantasy VII Remake. From his washboard abs to his perfectly coiffed hair, he is big of heart and dumb of ass. Johnny makes it clear that he is looking for love and has plenty of love himself to give. But Josh, I hear you say, Johnny is in love with Tifa. How could he be a perfect match for Cloud? And to that I say once again, you think too small. Everything Johnny does is a delicate ruse to win Cloud's affections and slowly ingratiate himself into his life. For example, when you run through Wall Market looking for clues that will help you save Tifa's life, Johnny is always coincidentally there. But is it really a coincidence? Honeybee Inn, Johnny was there. Madame M's parlor, Johnny was there. Was it really a coincidence, or was Johnny the one leading Cloud through these trials so that he could be the one to save his childhood friend and take the glory? Johnny was the only man willing to put his pride to the side, took a dive in the Coliseum, and risk bodily harm to himself, all so that Cloud could be the one to save the day. If you're still not convinced, Johnny is so clearly the most appropriate choice for Cloud that even the developers think so. Johnny is the only character in the game with a trophy devoted just to him titled The Johnny Experience. It's Johnny. It's Johnny. It's Johnny.